guys, Andy here, and I'm here to bring you all things mundane and makeup related. If that's your vibe, I'd love it if you would subscribe to be part of my little slice of the internet. And in today's video, I'm bringing you, in my opinion, the best palettes for spring. I have 20 palettes here, so if you want to hear why I think these are really good palettes for spring, what they are, and all of the hoopla, then let's get into it. So, these are just based off really vibes mostly. For me, springtime is pastels, light colors, color stories that make me either think of like rain, light rain, flowers, sunshine, Eastery time, things like that. To me, that's springtime. So, I got 20 palettes here, like I said. I'm going to do little mini reviews, and then I'm going to tell you why I feel like they're springtime palettes. So, there's a handful of these that I have not used, and then there's a handful of these, a good half of them, that I have used. So, the first one here, that's in spot number 20, I have not used. This is from Notoriously Morbid, and this is their Weird Vibes palette. I do think the artwork is gorgeous. This is what the color story looks like. And it gives spring vibes, because, like, it's a light palette. It's got a little, like, moth. Is it a moth? Yeah, I think it's a moth. It's either a moth or a butterfly, and that gives springtime vibes. We got a flower embossed in here, and, like, this color story just gives spring to me. But this is in spot number 20 because I will personally never purchase from Notoriously Morbid again. I really like the two loose shadows I have from them, but I still haven't tried this palette. The ordering process that I went through to get this order was horrendous. The customer service was horrendous. And, like, it just makes me not want to try the palette, even though I have it. And I need to, so I can figure out if I like it or if I want to pass it on. But it's just one of those things that, like, I'm just so icked by how the whole thing went. Even though, like, I love the loose shadows that I have. They're gorgeous. I don't know. I think all of these, so there's 2 shades. Every shade but these 2 are lip safe as well, so I think that's neat. But yeah, that's why this is in spot number 20. In spot number 19, we have the Milk Cosmetics Millennial Pinks. And these pinks just give me springtime. I think they're light, I think they're pretty, I think they're cute. This is in spot number 19. One, I haven't tried this palette. I think I've tried one Melt palette, but I've heard horrible things about this palette. So, like, I gotta put it low. I also hate this. Like, if you're gonna put a gray and a black in a palette, you could at least make them different depths. Like, the depth of this palette is wild to me. So I definitely need to try this palette and figure out if I like it. I like the packaging. But that's why that's in spot number 19. And you can disagree with me on these. That's totally fine. And spot number 18, 17, and 16, and 15, they're all Colourpop palettes. And at least they're all in the bottom. We have, in spot number 18, this is Colourpop in a Trance. Now, I do like this palette, so just hear me out. Look at that. Tell me that's not springtime. They're light. They're not, like, is this pastel? Because to me, it's just giving, like, desaturated more than pastel. But this one, out of the 3, because I have this whole collection here, the mattes need the most building up of the 3 palettes. The glitter is chunky. chunky, chunky, chunky. And I like Colourpop pressed glitters, but dear Lord, is that chunky. This shade makes me ungodly angry. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of swatches in this video because, like I said, we have 20 palettes. But this is the shade Klarity, and it is a Super Shock. And it is just a shittier version of Ice Dream. So that is it right there, and I actually have Ice Dream right next to me because it was in a project. So here's Colourpop Ice Dream. Like, there's a slight difference, but on the eyes, same thing, and it's just not as good. It doesn't give as much shine, it doesn't give texture, it doesn't give anything. It's just, I'm never gonna use this shade ever again, and it makes me viscerally angry that it's there. In spot number 17, we have Aura and Out, which I wanted this palette so bad, and DW sent it to me, and I'm so happy. Now, this one also has a super, super chunky glitter, and it has one of those Super Shock shades, which is very pretty. I do like this one. Whether it'll perform on the eyes or not is a different story. It does not sniff. Okay, good. But the reason, so this is springtime because of these greens and mints. This is giving like fresh grass sprouting to me. But I don't know. The color story doesn't seem as cohesive on this one. And I haven't used it, so I was ranking it a little lower. And then in spot number 16, we have Miss Bliss. Which, this one, which I think is the most cohesive. And this one does have pigmented mattes. We do have, again, a super chunky glitter. But these were like disco-esque palettes. But what I like about this one is it doesn't have one of those Super Shock shades. The rest of the two other shimmers are just regular shimmers. So, that's why this one ranks above the other two. And then, I think this is the last Colourpop palette, if I'm not mistaken. And this is spot number 15, is the Colourpop Lost in Love palette. And to me, though I know Valentine's Day is technically in winter, because the first day of spring is March 20th, this still makes me think of spring. Because it's still kind of bright. We have these pops of pretty colors of glitter. And you can tell me the first day of spring is in March, but to me, spring starts in February. It was wild to me to find out that spring starts in March. So Valentine's Day makes me think, like, spring has started, Valentine's Day. So, but what I will say about this palette, this side I wish was more peachy, because this does not lean as red as it looks. This is just a setting shade. The two glitters in here are, which even are the glitters? These two glitters are really nice, but they're on this pink side. Like, we don't have a peachy glitter. This shimmer has no shine. This, like, it's not really a shimmer, but it's not really a Super Shock. Doesn't do anything. And then these mattes are all the same depth. So this palette isn't the best, personally. Okay, now we're done bashing the Colourpop. Next, in spot number 14, we have the Morphe Rose to Fame. I have not used this yet either. Again, this is just those more desaturated, but still light. Light and airy, sunshiny, morning tones. I literally bought this because of the way that they advertised these palettes and these center shades. So these center shades you can use wet to dry. That is the whole point of the palette. They had a gold, a silver, this one, which is the rose gold, and I think they just came out with 2 more. So, still haven't used it, but it intrigued me, so I bought it. But I think I've only tried 2 other Morphe palettes and I decluttered them because I did not like the formula. But that was years ago. So, no, Lazmere. No. Next, in spot number 13, we have the Milani Gilded Flora, which I don't think you can really get more spring than this besides pastels, which we'll get to. But, like, even the names in this palette are Busy Bee, Botanist, Best Bud, Forget Me Not. Like, I think this palette was sufficiently, sure, underrated. So many people did not like this palette because the mattes are soft and they take up, they need built up. But now that's a thing. Like, even there are Natasha Denona palettes that have that kind of matte formula. But these shimmers are so pretty. I think this is a really gorgeous palette that was slept on 110%. In spot number 12, this is one of my newest palettes to my collection, so I haven't used it. But this is the Charlotte Tilbury Queen of Luck palette. So we have a duochrome here. And then, so we have a matte, like, peachy brown. We have a gold, and we have, like, a champagne-y shade. And this just makes me think of, like, easy, quick, go to work, springtime, bouncy, like, let's get out and go. Because I feel like spring is when we're doing our big spring cleaning, we're doing decluttering, like, we're getting back our work ethic because the winter blues are gone. And that's just what this made me think of. So that is why that's in number 12. In spot number 11, we have the Viseart Florette Amour palette, which looks like this. This is one of the ones with blushes. So this, again, just makes me think of spring because we have the more desaturated pastel-y tones. And, like, this just makes me specifically think of a flower, like a purpley pink flowers. These blushes, fantastic. They do pull a little more warm on the face than they do in the pan here. The mattes, pigmented and blendable. This darker shimmer, that's kind of a duochrome, beautiful on the lid. This lighter shimmer sucks. My issue with this is it made my eyes incredibly irritated and itchy. So, do with that information what you will. And now we're into the top 10 palettes. In spot number 10, we have Pat McGrath Quad in Eternal Eden, which I have not tried this palette yet. But, again, this just makes me think of a flower. And springtime brings the flowers back. I do wish that there was a special shade. Like, we do just get, like, traditional shimmers in this palette. And I just don't think for the price that this quad is that special. For Pat McGrath, I feel like you're paying for the name and the packaging. But I still haven't tried it. So there's that. And I'm not a huge quad fan, but it did swatch amazing. So I do still need to use it. It's whole to do. In spot number 9, we have the Natasha Denona Retro palette. The regular midi retro, which looks like this. So, again, this is giving desaturated, flowers are blooming, but we're still kind of rainy, murky, that. So for me, I wish there wasn't the cream to powder shades in here because this is not as good as the palettes that are coming out today. I also wish, because, like, I've only used this palette 2 or 3 times, and I don't know if you can see, like, the shades are just hard panning already. And that's really unfortunate. I wish there was more shades like this psychedelic shade in the palette because that's the best shade in the whole palette. I really am keeping this palette currently for sentimental reasons. So I don't know when I do my next palette declutter in June if this is one that will stick around. Next, in spot number 8, we have the Ensley Rain Hoppy Go Lucky. So again, Easter makes me think of spring. Bunny rabbits, Easter, like that is just springtime in a palette to me. So my issue with this, one, quality is fantastic. These little 6 pans are the only ones I've tried, but these are great. They all 3 so far, because I know there's a new one, the Hedgehog palette. It would have already came out by now, but I'm filming this early and it hasn't come out. But they all come with a setting shade, which is wonderful, but they're all a different tone. And they all have a different shade tone of brown in them to deepen. Beautiful. My issue with this palette, I don't understand why this warm orange is in here with this cool toned taupey purple. And like the brown can go either way. And then we have a beautiful duochrome, which I love this. And then this is just a regular shimmer. The other 2 6 pans have 2 multichromes in all of them. I hate that this one has just a regular shimmer. Like, it's pretty, but knowing what they can do with their formula, I don't want a regular shimmer. I want multichromes and duochromes, so that is that. In spot number 7, we have the Natasha Denona Mini Crush. Because again, Valentine's Day for me is spring. Fight me on it. And this is the perfect little Valentine's Day palette. Because I just love the look that you get with this palette every time. If you just use the whole palette, it's a beautiful look. And I love it. It performs great. It's a beautiful little mini. I love the minis from Natasha Denona. Personally, I need more of them. There are so many more of them that I want, but I digress. In spot number 6, we have the Natasha Denona Retro Glam. Because the color story is spring. We got the, like, light pastel-y greens of the grass growing. We got the pinks of some flowers. We got the wet ground. The color story screams spring. Now, I have not used this palette, but the color story upsets me because this is not what I wanted it to be. It is not the mini retro, which we'll talk about. Like, this is not represented here, in my opinion, but I do still like this color story for what it is now. But I do still need to use this palette, and I love the packaging. So, in spot number 5, we have, from Iconic London, this is the Treat Yourself palette, which looks like this. Again, we have the pops of grass growing, the wet ground. So, that's what this made me think of. Now, I have not tried this palette, but in the swatches I did, this swatched amazing. And, like, the shades in here make me think of, like, carnivals, which I know carnivals are summertime and, like, the fairs. But it's just spring is getting us closer to that because we have lemonade and soft scoop and sundaes and taffy, and you can start going to do all of that stuff more towards the spring. So definitely need to give this palette a try. In spot number 4, we have the Natasha Denona Love Face palette. So sorry for the glare, because this is beautiful. Again, screams a flower to me. Let me flip this up as well. I do wish that there was one more shimmer in the eyeshadow shades, because that's just my preferred ratio for the 5 pans, is 2 shimmers to 3 mattes. But I think that it's pretty. I love this blush shade, and I think it goes with it. I wish that the highlight was just a touch lighter, personally. But it's gorgeous nevertheless. In spot number 3, we have my favorite mini, and that is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro. I love this. Like, it feels like it shouldn't work together, but it does. This was actually the first Natasha Denona palette I ever got. First one. It's what started the obsession. This is wonderful. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I love it. Can't say enough good things about it. In spot number 2, and the last 2 palettes are pastels, because you can't have spring without pastels. We have the Glaminatrix Pretty in Pastels palette. Now, I love that this goes in a gradient. I feel like this makes it really easy to create a look if you're not feeling creative or in a rut. You can be like, I want to do a blue look, and just go straight down, and there you go. 3 mattes, a darker shimmer, a lighter shimmer. I love that you can still create depth. You have your pastels. It's beautiful. I love this palette. It's a gorgeous formula. I've only used this once, and I used the purples, so I definitely need to dip into this more, but it's stunning. And now in spot number 1, we have the Blend Bunny Sickly Sweet palette. Now, I have not specifically tried this palette, but I have tried the Blend Bunny formula. And these pastels just scream spring to me. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like the chaotic color story of this because Blend Bunny is known for doing the gradient color story. But I personally love this because it makes me feel more creative. Because then I can go, I want to use this quad right here. Or I want to use this whole 6 pan right here and create a look. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to use this 6 pan and create a look. Or I'm going to use this quad. And you wouldn't think to pair those shades together until you just start actually just looking at the palette and being like, I could do that with this palette. So I understand sometimes wanting a gradient and looking at that and that being really nice, but there is also something to appreciate about just a random scattered palette like this, because it's not necessarily as random as you think it is. And I think this is beautiful. And like I said, I've tried the Blend Bunny mattes. They're gorgeous. I've tried the Blend Bunny shimmers. They're gorgeous. I'm sorry I haven't tried this specific palette to rank it as my number 1, but I couldn't not. So those are my 20 springtime palettes in my humble opinion. Let me know, do you agree, disagree? What would be your favorite springtime palette? What are you reaching for this season? And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys!